Hello, everybody. My name is Calandra Eddington, and this presentation is called Stress It Out. And I am the owner of Nursing with Nature. Just to give you a little bit of information about myself, I graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington in 2004 with my Bachelor's of Science in Women's and Nursing. And I have been a women's health registered nurse pretty much since then. I have developed a lot of certifications or earned a lot of certifications since that time. I am a health and wellness coach, a certified aromatherapist and essential oil specialist, peri-steam facilitator, a doula, a herbalist student, and I do plan to become a women's health nurse practitioner with a postmaster's degree in holistic health, currently enrolled in Georgetown University. And I'm also a member of Chi Eta Phi Sorority Incorporated, which is a professional nursing organization. Now, disclaimer, in this presentation, medical advice will not be given. The content in this presentation is for educational purposes only. I am not licensed to diagnose or treat, and your practitioner's advice takes precedence over anything that is presented in this presentation. Now, what will we cover in this presentation? We are going to talk about what is stress. We are going to identify your stressors. We're going to talk about the 5 aspects of whole health, which are physical, emotional, nutritional, environmental, and spiritual as it relates to stress. We're going to talk about restoration or recovery. And then there's going to be a just for you section, but since this is mainly for YouTube, the just for you section is not going to be available. And this is also going to be a call of action towards the end. So what is stress? A stress is a force exerted when one body or a body part is being pressed on, pulled on, pushed against, or compressed or twisted another body part or a body. Okay, and that is from the Webster's Dictionary. Another definition is the deformation caused in a body such as a force, a state resulting from stress. And then the definition from the National Institute of Health states that a physical, chemical, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension or may be a factor of causation. Another definition of stress is putting an emphasis on something, such as worrying, trying to hold on, or manipulating a situation. So now that you have those definitions of stress, we need to identify your stressors. Now, stressors are an event or an activity that causes a change in your physical body. So, for example, the weather. When I'm in my bed and it's raining and I do not have to get up for work, that relaxes me. The sound of rain relaxes me. But if I have to drive in it, that is a stressor for me. It raises my heart rate, possibly raises my blood pressure, and it also causes a lot of emotions. There's also trauma, infection, other people, whether there are people in your environment, and that includes your home environment or your work environment. Nutrition, talk about the foods that we eat. Some of the foods that we eat are covered or have been exposed to obesogens or endocrine disruptors. And what I mean by that are those things actually disrupt our hormonal balance in our bodies. And these are pesticides, herbicides, and things like that. Lack of sleep can also be a stressor. Studies have shown that if you get less than 6 to 8 hours of sleep almost every night, you are more susceptible to cardiovascular disease, which leads to heart attacks and strokes. Surgery and reproduction are also other stressors. Now, stressors are perceived threats. Now, notice I said perceived, okay? Where do you feel stressed in your body? Do you feel stressed as far as in your back, your shoulders? Do you have headache? Or do you normally experience indigestion or heartburn? Where do you feel the stress in your body? So notice how I said the stress are perceived threats. So what may be stressful to you may not be stressful for me. And just remember, there are good stressors and there are bad stressors. Good stressors are planning for a vacation or planning for an event such as a wedding or a birthday party. But a bad stressor can be children misbehaving, or actually the people that you have to deal with at work. So just remember, stress is not always a bad thing. We actually need stress to survive. So to better understand stress and how some people can react to the slightest stressor more than others, we need to understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist that studied how humans behaved based on motivation. So in 1943, he came up with this theory that said that there were 5 levels to motivation. And if the first 4 levels of motivation were not met, an individual is definitely going to experience some stress. So let's go over those five levels of motivation, starting with number 1, physiological needs. Now, these physiological needs is what we need to survive. This is our basic food, shelter, water, and clothing. Okay, those are physiological needs. Number 2, going up, is safety. Now, we need to live and we need to keep ourselves safe. So if there's anything that is jeopardizing our livelihood, that is jeopardizing our safety, and therefore we are going to be stressed out. Third level is belonging. Everybody wants to have a sense of belonging. So does anybody love us? Does anybody want us? Do I belong in this group? Where can I find my tribe? That is a sense of belonging. Then you also have esteem. Now, this is where you actually demand respect. So how many times have you seen people feel disrespected, and how do they react to that disrespect? Now, when you get to level 5, this is self-actualization, okay? You have everything that you need. You are able to rationalize. You are able to make a conscious decision. You are able to say, hey, this stressor is not going to affect me. And that's where you get to self-actualization. Now, notice not everybody is able to get to self-actualization. And we're going to talk about what stress does in our physical realm or in our emotional realm that causes us to react. So let's talk about the physical aspect. So not to get into too much detail, because I can talk about this all day, but with the physical aspect, we have the central nervous system. And with the central nervous system, we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves, 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and you have 33 vertebrae in your spinal column to keep everything aligned. Now, every body system is innervated by those cranial nerves. And we have something called messengers or neurotransmitters that communicate from the brain through the spinal cord to the tissue, cells, or organs or muscles in our body. So the central nervous system is divided into 2 parts. You have the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. Now, autonomic nervous system, think about the base word, auto, okay? Autonomic. That means that you do not have to think about it. It comes naturally. It is automatic. Okay. So this is you breathing, or this is your heart breathing, or your heart beating. I'm sorry. This is your heart beating. So this is something that you necessarily don't have to think about it. But when you think about the somatic system, this is something like, okay, I need to get up. So you either tell yourself internally or out loud that you need to get up, and you get up and you move. So when we're thinking about the autonomic nervous system, that system is broken down even further into 2 systems. And this is where I love to talk. This is something that I love to talk about. So we have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And these 2 systems together provide us what we call homeostasis or balance. We all need to be balanced. So with the parasympathetic nervous system, I call this the prey system. And just to kind of talk about what happens when the parasympathetic system is activated, we have constricted pupils, meaning that our pupils are kind of narrowing in a sense. We don't need to see as much. We have a slow heartbeat. We have constricted airways because we don't need that much oxygen to come in, and we don't need that oxygen to carbon dioxide I can't come to my words. I am so sorry. That the oxygen and the carbon dioxide transfer in the alveoli in the lungs. Also, the parasympathetic system actually stimulates stomach activity because now there's a lot of blood flow to the digestive system. Then you have the inhibit glucose release. So the liver is like, okay, I don't need to release glucose because we don't need that to go into your tissues to be able to run or to fight. And then for the parasympathetic nervous system, it also stimulates sexual arousal for both a man and a woman. Now, for a woman, for example, if we are stressed out, we are not going to be able to have the desire to have sex. Or if a man is in chronic stress, he may experience what we call erectile dysfunction. Okay. So then we have the sympathetic nervous system, and this is the fight or flight. So our pupils dilate, or they open up, if you will, because we need to be able to see. We have an increased heartbeat because, okay, we need to get blood flow to these organs and to these tissues. And then you have more relaxed airways. And I know you're probably thinking, like, why do we have relaxed airways in the sympathetic nervous system? Well, your bronchioles and your lungs have to dilate or open up. So they do have to relax in order to receive more oxygen and us to be able to exhale more carbon dioxide. Then our body is also telling us, you don't need to digest food right about now. So we're inhibiting any type of digestive activity. Your liver is also stimulating glucose because you need that glucose to go into your tissues. So the muscles, your tissues and your muscles, so your muscles can be like, okay, it's time to run. And then in the sympathetic nervous system, you also secrete adrenaline, and we're definitely going to get more into that as well. Also, the sympathetic nervous system actually promotes orgasms, where it's for women, vaginal contractions or ejaculation in men. So how do we perceive a threat? We perceive a threat through our five senses. You either feel a threat. So for example, you're gardening and you feel a snake or a spider or something crawling over you. That's a threat. You either see a threat. Imagine a vicious dog coming towards you and all you can see is his canines and him lunging towards you. That's a threat. What if you smell a threat? Maybe fire. Taste a threat, something tastes bad or something tastes metallic or metal, like metal, that may be a threat. Or what if you hear a threat? Okay, you can probably hear gunshots or you hear somebody yelling. That is a threat. So let's talk more about the sympathetic response. So we call the sympathetic response, we have the 4 F's. We have fight. You may want to fight. Flight or run. Freeze. Some people stand in shock. And fawn. A lot of people are not too familiar with fawn, so I will definitely explain this to you. Fawn is when you are trying to appease that person to get out of that stressful event. So for example, somebody has a gun to your head. You're going to say, please don't shoot me. Or somebody is threatening to leave the relationship. Please don't leave. I will work on this. I can change. I will do better. That is an example of fawn. So going back to the 5 senses, we have perceived a threat. So what happens? Those 5 senses are being communicated to our brain. The amygdala senses like, oh, this is a stressful event. So the amygdala says, hey, we need to talk to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is like, all right, we're in a stressful event. Pituitary gland, I'm going to need you to do X, Y, and Z. So here we go. We're going to talk about the adrenal glands, okay, more specifically. So when the hypothalamus tells the pituitary gland to say, hey, adrenal glands, I'm going to need you to work your magic because we are in a stressful event, the adrenal glands say, okay. The first part is that you have 2 parts of the adrenal glands. You have the inner medulla and the adrenal cortex. The adrenal medulla controls the body's response to immediate danger, and therefore it secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine into the bloodstream. Then you end up having the adrenal cortex that secretes cortisol and cortisone. Now, cortisol and cortisone are involved in metabolism and the suppression of the inflammatory process. So anytime that you are in a stressful environment, you do have some inflammation that can go on, but that's what the cortisol and the cortisol is for. Now, in prolonged stress, what ends up happening is that the adrenals start to fatigue because they constantly are being overworked. So what happens is that the adrenals cause a decrease in thymus and the lymphatic function, which are a part of the immune system. And then also the digestive function is also decreased, which is our second brain. So therefore, we end up having silent inflammation because of the increase of epinephrine and norepinephrine in our bloodstream, and also because cortisol has been released too much to the point where it's just like the adrenal glands are fatiguing. So let's talk about the biological reaction to stress. First, you have a stressor, okay? Weather, inadequate nutrition. You have emotions, lack of sleep or trauma. Then you have the communication from that stressor from your five senses to the HPA, which is called the hypothalamus pituitary axis. And that communicates within the body to let the body know, and the vital organs that, or the glands that need to secrete the hormones to say, hey, we need to respond to this stressful event. Then it says, okay, since we've done that, we have activated the sympathetic nervous system, okay? And then over time, if you constantly have repeated stressful events, then the adrenal glands are going to fatigue. So what happens once you have prolonged stress? You end up having silent inflammation. Now, silent inflammation is the inflammation that you don't feel. When we think of inflammation, we're thinking of swelling, we're thinking of warmth, we're thinking of pain. But the silent inflammation is silent because you don't feel it. You don't know what's happening until you're actually diagnosed with the disease. So what happens in silent inflammation? You have decreased bone marrow function and decreased thymus function, which is related to your immune system. So have you noticed that people that are constantly stressed out, they are mostly sick? You also have increased susceptibility to disease, decreased digestive function, decreased reproductive function. Now, working in women's health, I can honestly tell you that a lot of a lot of women who are stressed out are not able to conceive. But once they end up having a baby, or they don't have end up adopting a baby, or not as stressed out anymore, they're able to conceive, because that's the body's way of saying you don't need to reproduce. You also have a desire for stimulants. I know so many nurses that as soon as they start their shift, whether it's a day shift or night shift, I need my coffee first so I can function. A lot of us are like that. Then you also have an increased demand for nutrients, and then you also have vascular tension because of the release of hormones from the adrenal glands. And the vascular tension causes high blood pressure. It causes other cardiovascular disease like heart disease or strokes. Now, recovery, we can get to that, but sometimes we're not going to be able to get to that the optimum state that we were at once before. So we just have to focus on wellness, okay? And that is normalization of all functions as much as possible. So when you have silent inflammation that has gone on for a long time, then you have chronic inflammation, okay? So anything that's lasting over 3 months is considered chronic. So therefore, you may end up having cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, neurological diseases, cardiovascular disease, pulmonary diseases, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune diseases. And for women specifically, we may have fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS. We have a lot of things that happens to our bodies. So from the emotional aspect, you have to think about what you think about and how you feel. So every thought and emotion is communicated to each cell in our body. And that is from Catherine Perth, and that is from her book, Molecules of an Emotion. If you look her up, she did a lot of research studies about how emotions and thoughts are communicated to in our cells. So pretty much, if you think positively, you have a better quality of life. If you're always thinking negatively, those negative thoughts are communicated to your cells. Okay. So like in the Bible, it actually says life and death is in the power of the tongue. So watch how you speak to yourself, most importantly. So how are we going to talk about the emotional aspect without talking about the reticular activating system? You can't. So let's go into more detail. So let's start from the very beginning. You have a stimulus or stimuli. That is, stimuli is considered a perceived threat, or your body communicates it as a perceived threat. The amygdala is like, hey, hypothalamus, I need you to communicate to the pituitary gland and all the glands that need to secrete any type of hormones to get us in that sympathetic nervous system response. I'm gonna need y'all to act, okay? So boom, we have that. So the reticular activating system helps translate the internal and external information, and it actually tells the body what to do. Okay. And it's also a part of the limbic system. Now, the limbic system controls how we react to that stimuli. All right. So it also processes emotions. It also helps with memory, which is also close to the hippocampus, and sexual stimulation. So the limbic system actually helps with our behavior, our sense of smell, and long-term memory. Now, our limbic system is actually very, very close to the prefrontal cortex of our brain, or the very front part of our brain. And that is not developed until we're about 25 years of age. So it helps us reason and to react. So if you notice that a teenager in a stressful situation is not able to reason like an adult. So this is how the limbic system relates to how we perceive and respond to stress. Now, I also want to point out, when we have silent inflammation, and that's because we have been in stressful positions for a long period of time, there's inflammation in our brain, especially in our hippocampus. So therefore, our short-term memory is not the best. How many times have you been so stressed out that you forget where your keys are? You forgot where you put an object down, your phone, whatever the case may be. This is the reason why. Nutritional. Now, remember, in chronic stress, there's a lack of blood flow to our second brain, which is the digestive system. So therefore, our body thinks that we need more nutrients. So what we eat and how we eat determines how we're going to feel, okay? So when we eat well, we become well. But when we don't eat well, we become ill. You are what you eat. To be honest with you, it's kind of like a conspiracy, because the foods that are healthier for you cost more than the foods that are not as healthy for you. So with that being said, try your best to eat a lot more fruits and vegetables. There are a lot of what we call diets out there for certain ailments, like the DASH diet for cardiovascular disease or hypertension, or the Mediterranean diet for overall health. Those diets are available for you, okay? But as much as possible, drink a lot of water and eat a lot more fruits and vegetables than you actually consume meat. Environmental aspects. So your environment plays a part into your overall health and how you perceive stress. So you can be in a very calm environment, you can be in a stressful environment, or you could be in an environment where it's in between, depending on where you are. Home environment is peaceful, but work is stressful, okay? And sometimes we need to change our environments and able to have that optimum level of wellness as much as possible. So when we talk about environment, there's external and internal environments. Our external environment can impact us negatively or positively. Our external environment, water, our cleaning products, our lotions, our soaps. Is there pollution in the air? Noise, people. That is our external influences. Our internal environment is our DNA, or our genes, but our genes are affected by things from our external environment. So when we talk about what they're affected by, I want you to remember the term risk factors, okay? So risk factors are things that predisposes you to certain diseases. So for example, alcohol, drugs, chemicals, caffeine, tobacco, radiation, toxins, nutrients, pesticides, or exercise. Okay, exercise is actually a good thing to actually do and able to help your body heal. So when we talk about pesticides and herbicides and things like that that are in our foods, those actually disrupt our endocrine system, which our endocrine system is pretty much our hormonal system. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but we call those endocrine disruptors because they affect our hormones. And we're talking about glucose, insulin, and things like that. So not to go into too much detail, but I just want to let you know that that's what pesticides do. It disrupt our endocrine system. So why are some people affected by the external environments and some people are not? So let's go back to the internal environment. I have a picture here of a chromosome. So at each end of a chromosome, there is something called a telomere. Okay, and this telomere maintains the chromosomes and prevents degradation. But there is an enzyme called telomerase, and this is the enzyme that actually erodes the telomeres, which are at the ends of each chromosome. So every 7 to 10 years, we have DNA cell regeneration. Okay, now everybody's body is different. Now sometimes that cell will regenerate to its full capacity, and sometimes it cannot. Now as we get older, there are going to be certain DNA strands that are not going to be able to regenerate just because that is the normal process of aging. Also, there are certain DNA strands that will not degenerate because of those risk factors or those external environmental factors that causes those DNA strands not to regenerate, and then it makes you susceptible to disease. So the best example I can give you of this is my family. On my mom's side of the family, they have been diagnosed with heart disease, heart attacks, and strokes. One of those risk factors were smoking. My mother still has those same conditions, but she is not a smoker. So therefore, she has not had a heart attack or a stroke like her siblings did. So that is one example that I can give to you. Lastly, the spiritual aspect. So when we talk about the spiritual aspect, we are not just talking about religion. We are talking about how you view the world. And that could be from your environment. This is how you value yourself. Now let's go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talk about self-actualization and how this is the highest form of motivation. At this level, you can problem solve, prioritize, rationalize, and make conscious decisions. So when you're at self-actualization, your view of the world is going to be totally different from somebody who does not feel respected, their esteem. Somebody feels that they don't have a sense of belonging or not loved, or somebody that feels that their safety is in jeopardy, or somebody that doesn't have their basic needs met. So also, too, you need to understand that you're not in full control. Studies have shown that individuals who have a relationship with their God, okay, have a better quality of life. So let's put everything all together. So when we're talking about stress, you have your spiritual aspect, your worldview, okay? And your worldview can be affected by the environment that you grew up in, okay? Whether you grew up in urban areas, the hood, or the suburbs, that affects your worldview. That also plays a part in your emotions and how you feel. And those emotions play effect on how you eat, okay? Also, your environment has an impact on how you eat or what you have access to as far as nutrition is concerned. And all of this plays an aspect to your physical body. So when you're stressed out, all of these aspects are impacted. So how do we get to the road of recovery? So we need to activate that vagus nerve that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? That prey system. We need to calm everything down, all right? So how do we do that? First, take time for yourself, okay? Take time for yourself. That is definitely important. Get enough sleep, 6 to 8 hours a night. Exercise. The Center of Disease Control recommends only 20 minutes a day, which is a brisk walk, can actually increase your quality of life. Eat a balanced diet, okay? Smartplate.gov is a good resource that you can refer to as far as what you eat. Now, remember, your portion size is going to be mostly fruits and vegetables. Drink a lot of water and limit your alcohol consumption. So how do we activate that vagus nerve? These are some examples, not all, but praying, meditating, sitting in a quiet spot, listening to calming sounds, journaling, creating an environment of peace, or yoga exercises or tapping. And if you don't know what tapping is, I do have a resource that I can provide for you, or you can Google tapping. And then 4-7-8 breathing. This is something that I like to use. For 4-7-8 breathing, what you do, you inhale for a count of 4, you hold for 7, hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then for 8 seconds, you exhale. So inhale on the count of 4, hold for 7, exhale for the count of 8. And that is 4-7-8 breathing. Watch a funny movie, acupuncture, or massages. Now, something that I did leave off that I should have put on here is aromatherapy. Remember how we talked about smell is really close to the limbic system, which the limbic system actually helps us control our emotions or help us react to certain things. So when we smell things like lavender or anything that you like that smells good, that is calming to you, that can actually stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So call to action. What are you going to do with this information? Okay, first, what are your values? What are your strengths? Okay, what are your values and what are your strengths? It takes 21 days to create a habit. Only a small change is necessary, and there is no such thing as failure. Now, coaching actually helps you because there are areas of motivation, and that's where we actually find a solution. So what are the stages of change? There are 6 stages of change. There is pre-contemplative stage. There's the contemplative stage, the preparation, action, maintenance, and termination. With the pre-contemplative stage, this stage is where you are not a bit more thinking about making a change at all. Okay, so therefore you don't need coaching. In the contemplative stage, you are actually thinking about making a change. In the preparation stage, you are preparing for that change. So for example, you said that you wanted to lose weight. So therefore you are prepping to lose weight by buying a water bottle, and you're buying workout clothes. Action, you have developed a SMART goal to help with your action. Okay, and we'll talk about SMART goals later. But with that action, you are saying, I am going to work out 20 minutes a day. Now, notice that in between action and maintenance, there's something called relapse. The average person relapses about 7 to 10 times before they actually get to maintenance, where they typically don't have to think about it. So when maintenance is like, okay, I developed a habit, I've been consistent with it, I don't have to consult with my coach about it, I don't need that much accountability. And when you get to the termination phase, that means that this is actually became a lifestyle for you. I don't have to think about it at all. It is second nature. So when we talk about goals, your goals definitely need to be SMART. And SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay, so a goal would be, I want to lose 20 pounds in 6 months by exercising 20 minutes a day, 5 days out of the week. That is a perfect SMART goal. Okay, so just to let you know, I am a wellness inventory coach, and there are 12 dimensions of wellness, if you will. And if you want more information about this, please let me know. But these 12 dimensions of wellness are self-responsibility and love, breathing, sensing, eating, moving, feeling, thinking, playing and working, communicating, intimacy, finding meaning, and transcending. And you take inventory of yourself. You're not assessing yourself. So pretty much there will be questions that will be asked of you in each dimension of wellness, and you rate yourself. And based on how you rate yourself, you get a score in the beginning when you take the wellness inventory, and then after you learn about the whole about the 12 dimensions, you take inventory of yourself again, and you just see, did I improve, or is there more things that there's more areas of motivation that I need to work on? So when we talk about the illness wellness continuum, this is pretty much showing that you can get to high level of wellness or you can get to premature death. Okay. So when you focus on the signs and the symptoms, it leads to the disability, you're leading to premature death. But if you know you have something and you are aware of it, you're educated about it, and um, you take those habits and you change your habits for growth, regardless if you have a disease or not, you're still at that high level of wellness. So just because you have a disease does not mean that you cannot achieve wellness. There are some people that say, okay, I have diabetes, I need to work out, and they're constantly working out. They're putting their body more in stress because they're not doing other things to actually achieve that high level of wellness. They are more focused on, I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight, and therefore they're working themselves to death, and that's not good. So if you ever have any questions, I can give you information where you can contact me. I am coming up with a coaching package that's going to be starting soon. So if you need more information about this, please let me know. And I'm not going to go too much into this since this video is going to be posted here on YouTube. So how to stay in touch with me? My website is www.nursingwithnature.com. I can be reached at calandra@nursingwithnature.com as far as my email address. And that is my business number. And here's my social media platform. So I do thank you so much for actually watching this video. Please rate, share with other people, and let me know what you think in the comments below.